Me again, Frank Frost. I'm here today to talk to you about corruption. Corruption in our system between the courts, the RCMP, federal and provincial government. As you know from my other videos and from my beautiful wife's video, they've corrupted our whole system in an attempt to cover up a murder of a child, Carrie's firstborn child. This child was murdered by her father. Two pedophile lawyers named Ken Aziz and James Turner were present at the time, and they are also murderers, first-degree murderers. They sexually molested my wife from the age of 8 to the age of 12, which she has stated. Recently, I was in court in front of Judge Gray in the presence of Mr. McDonald. Now, I exposed Carrie's written statement, and I also exposed her video at court. Judge Gray, who I believe is participating in this cover-up, all of his orders, all of his things against me points to that. He's scum. Her statement is online on this website, and hundreds of thousands of more. But I'm going to read it anyway, just so there's no mistake as to Judge Gray's participation in this. She reads, "I've had enough of living in fear. I'm doing this video to make the cops and the ministry leave me alone. I'm tired of the threats and living from day to day without knowing how I'm going to eat or have a place to sleep. I want to go home to the man I love, me, and live a normal life like everyone else. I saw Frank's videos yesterday, and everything he said is true. The one with Barry Kennedy, pedophile Barry Kennedy, I was forced to say those things about Frank by Barry. Frank is the only one that ever treated me with love and respect, because that's the only way I know how to treat a woman. Like he said, and he never did any of the things they said for me to say about him. I will never forget what those 5 men did to me at the prison on January 24th, 2013. 5 men entered a cell in the BC Correctional Facility in Prince George. 5 cops, because she told me they were in brown uniforms. For as long as I live, I thought they were going to kill me. I know now that I have to speak out about everything they wanted me not to talk about. They are doing all this to me to cover up the murder of my firstborn child. They have tortured me for over 25 years of my life, and it stops today, before they decide to kill me. Well, it didn't stop that day. It's not going to stop any day soon, because these people have just misconception of they're all powerful. I'm not very good at this, so the best way I know how to do this is list the names of people that have been torturing me and my kids, and Frank too. I wrote most everything on Frank's truck, but a lot of it has happened since they kidnapped my kids. Remember my truck in my other videos? And all the things she wrote on there. Keep that in mind. Bear that in mind now. Charles Alvin McKee. He murdered my baby by holding his hand over the baby's mouth. She watched him do this. Ken Aziz, James Turner. They sexually molested me starting when I was 8 years old and stopped when I was 12 years old. They were present when the murder took place. there was also one other man, but I can't remember his name. Now, interesting about that, when she heard the name Einar Martin, one of the people that kidnapped our children that works in Vancouver, a little fag, by the way, she said his voice was familiar and his name was familiar, and she wanted to see his face. And they won't produce him in a courtroom here in any CSA case. No, no, because they know it's him. Doug Newman, Barb Weber. I was the one who brought the cops to my house to arrest my father for other crimes, but not the murder. I think they knew about the murder because the day they dug up the backyard, they said they were looking for guns, but I think they were looking for my baby's body. Doug Newman and Barb Weber are cops with the Sandwich Police Department. MCFD in Chetwynd, BC that tortured me and my children. Kim DeVos, Bonnie Avey, Kathy Kennedy, and she's the district of MCFD in Dawson Creek. And the team leader, oh yes, real high up the corporate ladder. MCFD McBride, BC and Prince George that knew about the murder and threatened me and tortured me to be silent and lie about Frank. Raylene Bryce, Jesse Smith, Aaron Earl, Tamara Parker, Renee Spence, Beth Fredericks, Elizabeth Dupree, Penny Rivard, Melanie Johnson, Jeff whatever his name is, the counselor there at the Robson Valley Center, Jennifer Quam, who's profiting from having my children, Ashley and Emily. Jeff McDonald, Crown Prosecutor. Remember that? He said I had to lie about Frank to shut him up and make this all go away. And if I didn't, he said I would go to prison or to a mental hospital for the rest of my life. That's the Crown Prosecutor. Now, when I exposed this in court, the first thing Judge Gray should have done was arrested him right there. But no. Judge Gray didn't do that. No, of course not. Because that's one of his brethren that he's trying to cover up this murder with. And he can do whatever he wants to whomever he wants. Say whatever he wants, and it's gospel in Gray's court. Right, Gray? Sure it is. Barry Kennedy, Pete Bernston, Brady, Nathan Fox, McBride Detachment. They all threatened me that I would go to prison if I didn't do what the ministry wanted me to do. They also made me think that I was doing something good for our community if I reported what people that they wanted me to associate with was doing criminally. But I know now they were just trying to make me look bad for the rest of the community. They never did anything about the things I reported, and not even when I was gang raped by these people. I also told Aaron Earl about what happened to me, and she did nothing. The cops in McBride know all about this rape, and all the people that are involved have done nothing. Todd was supposed to meet me on February 13th. Here it is the 16th. Haven't heard a sound from him. He went out of town. I had to sit there, stand there and listen to that fat bitch Caputo tell me what he said in a room in the back of that police station when Todd and I were the only ones in the room. Simon Wagstaff, Michael Reed, Charles Hutchinson. Simon Wagstaff told me I was out of everything. He put Michael Reed and Charles Hutchinson as my lawyer, and to this day I have not known anything about court and what is happening there. The only conversation I had with Charles Hutchinson is when he called me about mediation on April the 30th. I have not been told about any court or been given any papers for court ever. All the documents I did have Barry Kennedy and Jesse Smith took from my house. They went into her house, the two of them, and said, "Give us all your documents. You don't need them. We have this under control," they said. Yeah, good luck with that. You got nothing under control, people. Nothing. And especially me. Especially me. Now, these are the people that I sent her statement to. Told them about the video. The whole 9 yards. Now, I'm going to start with the last ones that I sent letters to. This is to CTV, CBC, and Global News. Dear government media, and that's exactly what they are. They only tell you what they want you to know. Never anything true, heaven forbid. I call Global News the RCMP promotional hour. Dear government media, you are all a disgrace to our country. I'm faxing you more documents today outlining the cover-up of a murder I've been telling you about for 2 years. I don't expect you to tell anyone this story because you failed to tell anyone for 2 years. That's true. They've known. I sent them all the documents. And I expect you to continue. You will be replaced by the social media where people know that they can get the truth. You have not only failed Carrie and myself, you have failed our whole society. No truer words were spoken. And the shame of that you will bear, like they had any shame. If you want to know the truth, look on Disinfector 2 on YouTube, or on the Ministry of Children Corruption.wordpress.com. You disgust me. Yours truly, me. This is to our Minister of Justice. I laugh at the word justice because there is none. Not as long as these people are in power, I can tell you right now. But we're all going to change all of that. Dear Mr. McKay, I have been trying to stop the courts and the RCMP from continuing to cover up the murder of my wife's firstborn child for the last 3 years. She has been harassed, threatened, and tortured by everyone to silence her and myself. She recently made a video and wrote a statement that I am faxing you, and I'm also faxing you some of the letters I sent today concerning this matter. We need your help to bring all of the people involved to justice and bring closure to the embarrassment that these actions have caused our country. If we can't get your help, our way of life in this country is doomed, and the rule of law that our society relies on is also doomed. If you need more information, please call me. Now, I called this office. They received all the facts. They received my letter. Now, they said, oh, it'll be 4 to 6 weeks before we can reply. Yeah. 4 to 6 weeks. Can you imagine? They can't do nothing for 4 to 6 weeks. A federal office. And Mr. McKay's office. Oh, while I'm on Mr. McKay, here's a picture of Mr. McKay, right here. And right over here is Greg Matters. Greg Matters was murdered by the RCMP in Prince George. We'll get to that in a little while. This letter is to Miss Anton, Susan Anton. The Attorney General. The last Attorney General was Shirley Bond. Now, Shirley Bond knew all about my wife being tortured at the prison. When I called her office, they told me, stay out of it, or we'll put you in prison. That's what they told me. And they did, for 4 months. I am writing you to ask for your help and to not make the same mistake that Shirley Bond made in this matter. I expect you to do your job and help me repair the damage these people and others have done to our courts, Ministry of Children and Families, and the RCMP. If you fail to help me, you will be failing everyone in our society. She has no intentions of helping me. She has no intentions of helping anybody that speaks out against their government and the Ministry of Children and Family corruption. No intention whatsoever. Her assistant told me that the minister is not going to involve herself in this matter at all. This here is a letter that I wrote to Bev Gallagher at the Law Society. I am making a complaint with you about the lawyers that Carrie named in her statement. Jeff McDonald, Simon Wagstaff, Michael Reed, Charles Hutchison. As you can see, I have already contacted Chief Judge Crabtree. I expect to hear from you today to discuss this matter. Carrie made a complaint to the Law Society on April 27, 2013 about Charles Hutchison representing her in court without her knowledge. They did nothing. They protect the lawyers. They take the complaint and they say they're going to assign it a file number. I have yet to hear of a file number or anything of that nature from these people, and I don't expect to. They're criminals as well. And this letter here is to the Chief Judge, Mr. Crabtree, who I spoke with his office last year about this matter. Sent him all kinds of documents. Showed him corrupt judges, Weatherly, Callan, and Gray. Did nothing. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And he's not going to do nothing this time either, they told me. As a matter of fact, his legal team, one of his legal team, called me back. And his name was Gene Jensen. He said that I had to make a formal complaint about a judge. And as you can see, even on this letter, I made a complaint about one judge, Gray. I'm sending you a copy of Carrie Rook's statement that I presented to Judge Gray on February 3rd, 2014, along with a video that Carrie made. Jeff McDonald was present as well. Judge Gray refused to issue warrants for the arrest of all the people Carrie named as I requested, and that's exactly what I did. So I feel he is also an accessory to these crimes. What part of that did you miss, Crabtree? I'm looking to you now to intervene in this matter and show all these people that the laws apply to all. Well, good luck with that, eh? Yeah, the laws don't apply to all. Or Gray would have arrested that little prick right in the courtroom and give me the warrants for everybody's arrest. But he didn't. No, instead he put it off to March 6th so the cops and everybody could torture my beautiful wife some more. Just like Pete Bernstein, driving around, pointing lights in her in where she's staying in the windows. Then he went and asked her how come she made the video. How come she made the video? What a fucking statement. Ha ha! Ridiculous. Now, while I'm on cops, this is a picture right here. That's Barry Kennedy. This picture is on our website as well. See that little boy right there? That's my precious little Tony. This little one right here, that's my beautiful little Charisse right there. And then these are all the rest of my beautiful children. As you know, all children of mine. Yeah, every one of them. And that dirty pedophile was being glorified by the Sentinel newspaper for reading to my children. I'm not going to say who he molested, but he's been a pedophile for years. Who knows how many children he molested? We know of one for sure. And he's no longer in McBride. He's in the community of Princeton now. I follow his movements, see? Yeah, I follow all their movements. I got little birdies everywhere. Tells me everything they're saying, everything they're doing. Just like they do. Yeah. Only they report to me. Lots of them. But look at that scumbag, eh? Right? Isn't that something? In reading to little children. And they promoted it. Elizabeth Dupree, who was mentioned by Kerry as being one of the ones that kidnapped our children, that was his girlfriend. She had 2 little kids too. I wonder, is she participated in that too? Who knows, eh? Who knows? You'll never know the truth, because the cops will never, ever tell the story. No. Now, this. See this? This is a file that I, along with Kerry, put together from a ministry file. Now, from here all of this, you see that? See that there? That's all police complaints that Kerry made. Not one was satisfied. Not one. They took her statements, sent her a little thing of receiving it. Not a goddamn thing was done. As always with this so-called police commission. What a joke. I made numerous complaints. Numerous complaints. Nothing was done. No wrongdoing. That's the same story we hear when they murdered Greg Matters and they murdered people on the streets, and the man crawling on the street and they shot him in the head because he had a bicycle chain. He was a threat to all the cops who was there. Oh yeah, he only had 3 or 4 bullets in him, but he was a threat. Yeah. So it was okay to murder him. Then they murdered that young man in Houston, handcuffed him behind his back, shot him in the back of the head twice. And he was a hardened criminal too. He was drinking beer at a hockey game. Can you imagine? No wrongdoing there. All the tapes disappeared. Yeah, all the tapes in the cop station disappeared. Don't know what happened to him. Cop that murdered him, transferred. Transferred. Eh? We hear it every day. We hear it every day. Most people are too busy to even notice. And the mainstream media only puts out little blurbs. Usually at noon. Little blurb, and then by supper time it's even a smaller blurb. And they move on from there. They never mention it again. Because that's what they do best. They protect the cops. And all these pedophile judges, lawyers, the whole 9 yards. Protect them from all kinds of crimes. Now this is stuff that Carrie wrote. And some of this is unbelievable. But I'm going to read some of it here. All of this file, all of it, is on our website of ministryofchildrencorruption.wordpress.com. All my life I wondered why I couldn't get any help from the ministry. When I got my file and realized what they had labeled me, I wondered how they could have done this. Now I know because I remembered who had power to do this. His name is Ken Aziz. Remember the Ken Aziz? The pedophile lawyer that worked for the Ministry of Children and Families? A top-level official for the Ministry of Children and Families, and he was. He orchestrated this to discredit me and to hide the fact that he himself and another person who traveled with him to my parents' home to sexually molest me. I didn't say anything at the time because any time I was interviewed by the police, he was there. I also believe that my ex-husband and the Ministry of Children and Families conspired with him to discredit me even further. Now, interesting thing about her ex-husband. They were together 13 years. He's not allowed in his own country of Switzerland. Not allowed there. He goes there under assumed names. And got passports and stuff too. Now, I wonder how he got those. Right? Yeah, the ministry got him those. He tortured her. He was put with her, kept her pregnant, and tortured her. In this file you'll see he killed numerous family pets. Numerous. Slit their throats. Poisoned them. Threw one little puppy out the window at a sign. That's the man that the ministry insisted that the 6 children go to. That she gave up her parental rights for. And I'll show you why in a few minutes. Now, they labeled her mentally handicapped. They can label you whatever they want. Whatever a social worker writes down on a piece of paper is declared gospel in the courts. Judges don't even need any proof from them because of the legislation and the special powers the Ministry of Children and Families have. Oh, I should reiterate that. The Ministry and Children and Families Corporation, because that's what they are, is a corporation. A crown corporation. Now they'll tell you that, oh, it's a corporation for tax purposes. It's a corporation because they can put all kinds of people at work in that ministry and give them hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in salaries. And they don't have to do nothing, only have their name on a piece of paper. That's a corporation. And directors, all kinds of directors and this and that and the other thing. And suck the money out of the system. And they can justify all that from the children that they kidnap. And believe me, they kidnap thousands of children in this province every year. Thousands. Now, they kidnapped one child on Kerry, forged all the documents for an adoption that she didn't agree to. But they signed her name to it. And it's so obvious that the social worker signed her name, she didn't even try to hide it. She just signed Kerry's name with her own way of writing. I showed this to Pete Bernstein and Barry Kennedy. And they said, oh yeah, you're right, Frank. That's not her signature. But they didn't do nothing. As a matter of fact, they wouldn't even take her statement. And at the time, they wouldn't take her statement. We hadn't even mentioned the murder. Hadn't even mentioned it. It was all about pedophiles, sexually molesting her. But they still wouldn't take her statement. And I think I know why. Because I believe they knew that she was going to bring up that murder. And would also incriminate the RCMP, the Sandwich Police Department, the Ministry of Children and Families, who knew all about this murder, went out of the way to cover it up, and the provincial government. Christy Clark knows, Adrian Dix knows, John Cummings knew, Stark knew, countless of people in the system here in British Columbia knew about this murder and this cover-up because I fucking told them. I did. And I also told all of them in Ottawa too. Mr. Harper, he knew. The bitch in England, Queen Elizabeth, yeah, she knows. David Johnson, he knows. Mulcair, he knows. Trudeau, he knows. Bob Rae, he knows. Elizabeth May, she knows. But she was the only one in Ottawa that acknowledged this file. Now, I didn't tell her, and I had a note in here for her, that the murder wasn't talked about on these documents, but proof of life is in here. Oh yes, the proof of life of that child is in here. Elizabeth May was the only one that contacted me, sent me a letter, acknowledging the file, and explained that there was nothing she could do, and I'm sure there was nothing she could do. As a matter of fact, everyone else that I sent this file to, and I sent it to all the media outlets, all of the people I just mentioned, all of them got this file. Cost me a small fortune, but I sent it to them. Every one of them, when I called them about the file, they said they either lost it or they couldn't find it, didn't know where it was. No idea. Didn't have no idea about the file. But Elizabeth May sent me back this file. I phoned her office. First I thought they were screwing me around. But they did acknowledge having the file. So I left them alone, and then, lo and behold, they sent me back the file. So I thank you very much, Elizabeth May. The only goddamn politician in Ottawa who got guts enough to say they had this file and returned it to me. And acknowledged the fact that this is my property. So I thank you again. The only one in Ottawa that has any integrity whatsoever is Elizabeth May. Remember those words. This little file here shows all of the contacts, numbers, and everybody that I contacted and all their fax numbers, because the only thing I had available to me was a fax machine. And I faxed all these documents. I spent weeks and weeks and weeks sending documents. Now, this one here is representatives for children and youth. Champions for children and youth. That's what they say. See that? That's what they say. This is in on the website. It's all there. This is Mary Ellen Topel Lafont's office. She's the watchdog for the Ministry and Children and Families and the legislation that they're under. You know, she's a lapdog. She's not a watchdog, she's a lapdog. And she, oh yeah, you just be quiet now, don't say anything. And that's what they do to her. Yeah, pat her on the head, say, oh yeah, and she rolls over, they scratch her belly and away she goes. Yeah, that's what she does. She's nothing. I got news for you, my dear. There's a new representative for the children in this province, and across this country, and around this fucking world. Yours truly, Pitbull. I'm no lapdog. No one's going to scratch my belly and satisfy me. None of them. Every pedophile that's watching this, and I know you are, I'm coming for you. Every one of you. Every one that murdered children. Every one of you. I don't care where you are. All my children that are being molested. All of them. And all the people's families of children that were murdered are going to contact me. I've had thousands already. And I will name and shame the ones that did it. Just like I'm doing now. Name them and shame them. Oh yeah. No point chasing them through these courts. We know how corrupt that is. But in the court of public opinion. Right here. On the social media. The only way that you can find the truth is on the social media. I'm coming for you, Lafont. I'm going to get that office of yours out. There'll be no reason when I'm done to have an office like yours watching over legislation for the Ministry of Children and Families, because I'm going to bury them sons of bitches in their own shit. Every one of them, and including you, are scum. Scum. You're out, my dear. I also contacted the Steve Wilco show, and I talked to his producer, and because it wasn't that kind of story that they do. But I do appreciate the input from the producer there, and the acknowledgement of how sickening he was from hearing what I had to say, and wished that he could do something, but it wasn't that kind of a show. Now I contacted other shows too, like Dr. Phil. Yeah, Dr. Phil. Yeah. Well, Dr. Phil, I hope that your boss isn't watching this, because the first producer I talked to said, oh yes, oh yeah, there's something there we can, you know, look at. And then when I called back again, I was bluntly told, we're not touching that, have a good day, and hung up on me. Now, I think that Oprah Winfrey would be absolutely appalled by that reaction from your station. Absolutely appalled, given her past and what she went through as a child. And she can totally relate to Carrie, I'm sure. And I think that she might have something to say to you, especially if she sees this. Especially because you, sir, should have been lining up to do this story. Story of the century. Lining up. But instead you faded off into the sunset, didn't you? Now, this is another file of police complaints that I made. And in amongst this is also emails that I have sent to the UN. Now, everybody thinks that the UN is going to help you when you're being tortured, when you're being ridiculed, when, you know, when human rights violations are being committed. That's what we're told, right? Nothing could be further from the truth. The UN will go after countries that they want to get into for the United States, Britain, Canada, other countries that are in the UN that want information that they can't get any other way. And by the way, while I'm on the topic, anyone in the Middle East, Russia, anywhere, China, don't let these people in your country. Don't let them in there. For nothing. If they're in there now, kick them out. They are there, likely spying for these other people. I made a petition. I faxed them all the documents. And these people are a piece of work. I faxed them the documents. At 2 minutes, they emailed me back. 2 minutes later, and they said, and I quote, "After careful consideration of the contents of your petition, we sincerely regret to have to inform you that the United Nations Office of the High Commission for Human Rights is not in a position to assist you in the matter you raised for the following reasons. Domestic, judicial, administrative remedies do not appear to have been exhausted." In other words, you got to keep going to the fucking corrupt courts. Right? Yeah. Keep going to the corrupt courts and keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going like they have you do. Right? And, you know, so it's just round and round and round and round. And it has not been substantiated that the application of domestic remedies would be unreasonably prolonged or that the remedies would be otherwise unavailable or ineffective. Your petition does not provide sufficient details as to the facts of your case and or as to how your rights under the relevant treaty has been violated. Please accept our apology for not replying in a more personal manner. You may understand that while we appreciate your reasons for writing us, the existing procedures require that it is ascertained whether certain preliminary criteria are satisfied before proceeding with the examination of a petition. Now, 2 minutes after I faxed them all of these documents, all of them, and these, they sent that back to me. 2 minutes. And the reason they did that is because they seen torture in Canada. That's why they did that. All of these emails to the UN, to the Commonwealth, all of them are on file in our website. And all of these documents, all of them. Go through and you will see exactly what I'm talking about and exactly why these people are so goddamn corrupt. Now, let's see what else is in Pandora's box. Well, I'll tell you, this is what I've been really wanting to get into here. Now, they cover up all kinds of things. All kinds of things. All across this country. All across the country. They just go all hog wild and they cover up all kinds of things. Now, one of the best things they cover up is child molestation. And a perfect example of that is the RCMP. Here's a story from the news, nationalpost.com. Mainstream media. This is about a cop in Ontario. RCMP officer charged with sexual assault in child abuse case remanded in custody until next week. Now, they don't and they won't tell you his name. They never do. They never tell you the pedophile's name. But you know what's really interesting about this? Really interesting about this. You know, lawyers and their families. Very interesting. I'm going to read some of this to you, and remember some of the names that I already mentioned. Huh? They try to make it like the cop is scared, you know, like there's something going to really happen to him. Nothing's going to happen to him. Not a damn thing. He'll just change his name and send him on his way. But what's really interesting here is that his lawyer, Peter Aziz, remember Ken Aziz? Right? The lawyer for the Ministry of Children and Families, the pedophile. These children were assaulted, incarcerated in his basement. Now they don't say how many children because they say they don't know. But a police source says the investigation was launched after an 11-year-old child was discovered wandering in a residential neighborhood. And the source says it believes handcuffs were used to keep the child in the basement of a house for months. As of Wednesday, the man was suspended with pay from his service as an RCMP officer, and an internal investigation was underway. I'm sure, with pay. A criminal charged with a criminal offense stands before a judge and the fucking cops pay him? Huh. I don't know, maybe I am crazy. Maybe I'm crazy. But I think that's so wrong. Eh? You think that that might be just a little wrong? That someone could be charged with pedophilia and be paid for it? By the RCMP? Mind you, they're paying a whole bunch of pedophile RCMP running around now, so I guess it really doesn't matter, does it, eh? Huh? Nobody should be upset and angry about that, eh? You know, they do whatever they want. You know, like, I really don't understand this thing of paying the cops when they already know they're criminals. They arrest me, throw me in jail. They don't pay me. No. Nobody pays me. And I was innocent. They found me guilty, but I was innocent. And I'm still innocent today. Wants me now to appeal Judge Gray's decision. Here's your fucking appeal, Gray. Here's your appeal. I'm not dancing through your courts. I couldn't care less. I couldn't care less. Anyway, no point in talking about this cop anymore because he's got no name. He just lived in a upper scale neighborhood in Toronto. No name, but paycheck. Now this one. This I'm going to read in its entirety. A New Brunswick police officer is suspected of sexually abusing at least 260 children over the course of nearly 3 decades dating back to the late 50s. Canadian investigator said Monday. After decades of secrecy, private investigators and St. John, New Brunswick officials say that the lone police officer, Estabrook, was behind a massive abuse scandal that targeted vulnerable children for at least 25 years. Now remember the lone police officer. Remember those words. Although we cannot change the past, the city investigation into allegations of sexual abuse against Estabrook is about doing what we can to right a wrong. Yeah, I'm sure. St. John's Mayor Mel Norton said at the press conference, "Since the new allegations were brought to the city's attention, our main priority has remained on those affected." Yeah? And it's going to stay there too, isn't it? Because there's not going to be no investigation done. And I'll tell you why in a minute. Estabrook died in 2005 of cancer. Investigators say they suspected sexually abused at least 263 children. Most were boys, but some girls were identified in the investigation. About 53 of the victims are still alive. 33 are deceased, and officials believe there are another 152 suspected victims they hope to contact. I'm going to stop right there for a minute now. Now these are people in their 50s, early 50s. 33 of them are dead. Now, when you look at the number ratio, that's pretty high, isn't it? Don't you think? For people in their 50s? I wonder how many of them were murdered. And you'll see why I asked that question in a minute. There were also 6 attempted cases of sexual abuse. The disturbing details follows the exclusive global news story that aired last Saturday on news and current affairs program 16 by 9. Global News senior investigative correspondent Terry Trison and 16 by 9 producer Brennan Leffler spent more than 6 months gathering the names of more than 40 probable victims. The official investigation began in 2012 when one person came forward and told police his story. The extent and impact of predatory crimes committed by Kenneth Estabrook has been exceptionally devastating, reaching epic proportion and even extremely difficult to predict and respond to, lead investigator Dave Perry told reporters. And that's a picture of Dave Perry right there. Now, I spoke to Dave Perry. I phoned him when I got this story. And I asked him, are you investigating the crimes and the people surrounded with this? And he said to me that he was taking statements from the victims. So there's no investigation going to go on in this. Except for when I get back there. And then I'll be investigating it. And I'm going to say this right now. Anybody that knows any of these victims, or if any of the victims are watching, phone me. Tell me who was involved. Tell me their names. And I'll name them and I'll shame them and I'll go after them for you. But you tell me who did that to you. Because this fucking piece of shit didn't act alone. And I'll show you right now. St. John's man who spoke in conditions of autonomy was only 13 years old when he was first sexually assaulted in 1973. Many of the victims say they were taken to Tin Can Beach and abused by Esterbrookes, but there were other locations cited in this case. The victim would typically be assaulted at Tucker Park after being offered alcohol by Esterbrook. He'd buy liquor, he wouldn't buy beer because it would take too long to get you a buzz. Over the course of 3 years, he guessed he was assaulted. He even alleged Esterbrook had help from colleagues in the police force. Whenever he couldn't find his victims, if he couldn't get a hold of us, then he would have some policeman on the force look out for us, he said. I had the bumps and bruises. Let's put it that way, he said. So he sent his buddy cops. And I'll bet you some of them participated as well.